Software Park and yourself. So please give us a big hand before we start off. What I want to talk about here today is the topic is that an agile enterprise. I'll share a bit of my history as we go through this. But before that, I want to get a quick show of hands, please. So how many people here have worked in an agile project? Let me see. Fair number of hands, that's good. How many of you have heard about agile? Good, a lot of hands, awesome. I'm going to assume a basic agile knowledge within the room, so please feel free to stop me if you think that's I'm going too fast or too far ahead. Couple of other questions. How many of you have worked in teams that are larger than, pick a number, 50 people? Development teams larger than 50 people. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Not just your specific development team, a program that is running, that's working on the core system of a bank or something like that. Again, larger than 50 people. Any show of hands? A few more. Okay. So I'm guessing all of you work for small startups somewhere then. The rest of you, yes? No. So you're in the middle. So basically, let me just go through a quick bit of history before I jump into the rest of the conversation. So a bit about me. Thank you for the kind words for the introduction. And it's gone missing. Okay, there it is. Went to school, like a lot of people. Spent my entire life in software development, that's all I know. So if I have to do something else in life, I have no clue what that will be. And a few tech startups. I used to look like that. I was happy, young, bubbly, all startup-y. I used to be in San Francisco, all excited about being in software. And then I grew up, I guess. Where I started delivering agile projects at the end of my startup career. Got into ThoughtWorks. It was still a relatively small company at that point, although a niche company. So I've been delivering agile software for about 12 years, and that's all I know how to do now. Currently the managing director at ThoughtWorks ASEAN, but a transformation happened within me during this process. So what changed was, in that gap, I also got married. So my wife came into my life. She got married to somebody like that, and then a few years later, this happened. So I have a way of measuring how software or agile has gone mainstream, right? So when I was doing startup life, agile was there and people were there, and then they were asking questions. We were doing different things: extreme programming, Scrum, all these nice little things. Then I came into ThoughtWorks, started working with larger enterprises, larger organizations, and over a period of time, I've seen this in the US, then UK, and then India, and then Singapore. I'm getting bigger organizations come and ask for how do we go agile, how does our life change, what does it mean for me? Obviously it's different from a 5-year-old startup. What is it? So I have a way of measuring how the maturity is, because a lot of people are coming these days asking about enterprise and agile, which means it's starting to go mainstream even in this region. My wife has a very scientific way of measuring it. So she figures agile is mature, at least in the US, UK, India definitely. Singapore, it's getting there. What her scientific way is, when I was doing agile in startups, I had a lot of hair. But now, I've lost all my hair talking to enterprises about agile and how agile works. So with that, the current picture, she feels, agile is mainstream, you've lost all your hair, now it's stabilized, it's not going anywhere anymore. So I don't know if Dr. Jerappan would relate to me on that. But so that's kind of a quick picture of agile. In this region, in Thailand, in ASEAN, Agile is beginning to go mainstream. That's why I picked this particular topic. A lot of people are beginning to ask about what are the policy changes, what are the software changes, how do we do it in large teams, big process, big company, how do we actually make this work? So I thought it would be a good topic to talk about. So let's take a journey together to see if we can break if this is a myth or a reality and what that works like. So that was the world we were in earlier. Can everybody read this? Is it hazy, clear? Okay. So this was the life I was leading earlier when I was a happy young developer. Small team, user was right there, 6 people, 8 people, just build software, deliver it to the user, sitting right there, product, very clear, very happy, very quick. Kept it simple, clean code, very collaborative environment, the customer was right there, you ask questions, all the things that are written in the XP books, all the things that are written in the Agile books happen quite well. But then you start looking at it from an enterprise perspective, a large organization perspective. First thing I noticed was the separation of the development team from the users. Where I used to be sitting right next to the users and writing my little code and testing it and showing them everything was going well. And then suddenly I found I'm on a large floor, 200 people, all developers of different strata, there are some PAs thrown in, but there are no users, there are no customers in there. Instead, there are a whole series of sets of people that are there. So there is business, there is product management, there is IT, architecture, business analysis, project management, you name it, all the roles we have in our organizations are sitting between me as a developer and the end user who's going to use the software that I'm building. I started scratching my head and hence the subsequent impact. This was made far more interesting, right? So, because all this, I didn't know what the customer wanted anymore. So I was developing software that someone told me that they heard from someone, that they heard from someone, they heard from someone that I ought to build because there's a customer survey out there that says this is the right thing to build. So, and then when I build it wrong, obviously the business goes, that's not what I want. That's never what I wanted. And then you start going, you told me the wrong thing, no, you built the wrong thing. And then you start a business versus IT culture going on. And then you add on to the fact that all these people are there. I mean, who's writing the software? Right? Who's producing the software? Who's working with the customers? There are a lot of people that are managing expectations so that you don't point a finger at me and I don't point a finger at her. But who's building the software? So it was made more interesting even after that, right? Which was, that's fine, I built the software, now can I put it into production? No, you wait. You have the existing process, and that's where it really started impacting my follicles. So you have a whole bunch of people that come in after I've done developing the software. Right? They come in and say, there's security, there's compliance, your software does not meet our requirements. I didn't know you existed till 10 minutes ago. What do I have to do? And then you start getting requirements. There's a separate testing center of excellence that's sitting somewhere, no offense. But the challenge there is that they come in after the fact to test the software that should have been tested and done by the time it got here. So all of these things happen as an afterthought. And then as a result of that, you start fighting the fight. Do I have all the features? Do I have everything in there? No, you don't. Yes, you do. This doesn't comply. That doesn't work. This is broken. I get incentivized to break your software, so I'm going to break it some more. All the squabbles start happening in the circles as you go through it. Finally, someone says, make the release. Make the release. Do something. Do it. So you put it into production. And yay, you get software. It's there now, right? It's gone through all of that. And this process has taken you about, 12 months, 16 months, 18 months, 9 months, something of that order. And you're like, it's there. But then it starts breaking. And you start getting questions, this doesn't work in production, that's broken in production, and then you start going into patches route. And then very soon, you start calculating the cost of how much time you're spending on the patches versus how much time you actually spent building the software. It kind of looks like that. You spend 20% of your time building the software, and then you're continuously fixing, right? And the overall cost of the project is very high. So you have, and last minute changes. For developers in the room, I'm going to make you friends right now. You get pushed into a corner to get requirements in. As a result, we start making hacks, we start putting in hard coding, we start forgetting tests, we start doing everything that we shouldn't. And we end up with brittle code, very scary integration. I don't have test environments, so test on time, everything gets tested after it goes to production. My staging doesn't reflect my production. How would I ever know that it's broken? All the things that come in. So as a result of that, when people start asking you, how much longer? 2 days, 4 days, 3 days? You have no clue. IT doesn't know when it's going to get done. You kind of pick a number and says, 1 week, patch, done. And then it doesn't work. So ultimately what the business says is, look, all of this took me a year or more, and once the year got over, I got a patchy, buggy software. So if I wait for my requirements, I'm going to have to wait 1 more year. I want everything now. Now. I'm not leaving this, now. So people, no, I don't have time. I don't care now. So you start getting into that behavior where, and they're not mean people, they were nice people. I had lunch with them yesterday, they were good. But because they don't get anything, they start acting this way. So you're promoting these behaviors. So, just to summarize, it breaks the system of what the issues might be, where things are coming from, etc. So I don't have a clear software that I'm delivering very, very quickly, repeatedly, in a trustworthy way, to the business and to the end user, which is a big problem. So, does that mean I just go agile, will it solve all my problems? I have a case study for that. But this is the Agile 101 basics, where you start off by, in enterprises, you have to have a view of, how much is it going to cost me? Is it going to take a long time? Without having a cost, I'm not going to sign off on the project. So the CIOs, the CFOs, they need this. So, but this process of initial, get the business technology leaders, these guys involved, should not take more than, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. It shouldn't. So I'm on a project right now, working with a customer very closely. The engagement started in January for them, where the business said, here's the idea, I want this software built, and it has to go live by November. So you had 11 months. The analysis cycle on that project, so the customer said, great, we're going to do this, and they went away and they did some analysis for 4 months. So they started talking to us in April or May and said, guys, we want to build this software. We have all these requirements. You're like, 4 months out of the 11 months you spent on requirements. So when is this 7 months delivery going to start? No, we're doing design. So in June, we've started working with them to deliver something now by November. So the November hasn't changed. So the idea is to get to that answer, because without getting to April, people would not have signed off and given you the check to say, here, $2 million, go build this. People won't do that. So you need to have some level of confidence in what you're doing, but that shouldn't take any more than 2 to 3 weeks, not 4 or 5 months. Then you get into a process of continuous delivery, continuous feedback. I'll show you, by the way, how that ideology, how those ideas can be refined in a matter of a week rather than months. But you get into continuous delivery, design, all the good things about test-driven development, include practices of XP, Scrum, get them all together and start delivering software in very, very quick, iterative fashion that can go out to the customers. You define what would be a minimum viable product and start releasing it regularly. So, could be every 2 weeks. There are projects I've been on where we release to production 3 or 4 times a day. Not in weeks or months, 3 or 4 times a day. If you find that it's not there, we roll it back. The customer says the feedback isn't good, you roll that change back. And it takes you about 5 minutes to roll that change back because you have everything that's automated. You hit a button, it goes into production, you hit a button, it comes back. So you got to get there. Now enterprises go there typically on a monthly cycle at best. Sometimes on a fortnightly cycle if they're a very progressive enterprise. So you have PM, business analysis, all of the people as a part of the team. And then you have stakeholders who are going to give you the guidance. These are the people that were sitting in the middle. You make them your friends. You don't put them as a step process in the middle. Compliance teams, security teams, these guys you involve them very early to give you requirements. They become your stakeholders, your customers that have requirements that need to be met. These are serious issues for large organizations. You just cannot ignore them. But you have to make them, bring them into the process, make them heard, get their requirements and build them in. And then you get to finally releasing the software very quickly to the customer. So what this does give you is a whole bunch of things that are very nice. So you have IT and business working together, delivering continuous software which is tested, reliable, does not break consistently that you have to patch for. It gives you a whole lot of different things. Ultimately, from a people perspective, you can scale, add people, onboard people. All of these things are easy because you have clean code that's written at the base of it. So I've skipped through this section relatively quickly, given the agile understanding in the room. And then I want to get to this. So this is where I need audio video help. I don't see anybody in the room up there. Okay, I'm going to try this. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to plug this in, and this will make a squeaking noise, I'm sure. Can I try it? I just want to hit play on that. Yeah. That's something it's never done before. So yeah, not getting the volume. So I'll give you a quick background about this video that I want to show. So this is the kind of things we do. This is the application of practical software in real life with customers. So just a quick background of this. Woolworths is a large chain in Australia. It's a large grocery chain in Australia. And they had ideas of products. They wanted to have customers have these little mobile phones with barcodes that they can just scan and finish their own scanning and payment on the phone and go. So somebody up there said, it's a great idea, put it in, here's a whole lot of money, $500,000 to go build it. We said, no, instead of going the regular requirement gathering way, we need to test if this is a good product. So how do we quickly test if this is a good product? So I hope this video works because this is really what I want to show in terms of practical application of Agile in a real world setting. I can actually put the mic on the speaker and see if that works. Should I do that? Let me play this again once again, see. some reason the video is gone. I mean the audio is gone, sorry. There is definitely sound good. Never mind. I guess the video isn't meant to be. So let me tell you another story then. Sorry about the video, but I can give you a quick 1 minute brief of that. So basically what we did in that case is we took a team of developers, sat in a store for about a week, right? We set up a table inside a grocery store for a week and we built application for them right there and then. We built the application they wanted, showed it to customers, the customers tried it right on the store and it didn't work. They said, I'm not happy with it because I can't hold my basket and I can't hold the banana and I can't hold the phone and try and scan it and it doesn't work. So somebody who wanted to spend about $500,000 on this project figured out very, very quickly in 3 days that this idea doesn't work. So that's the kind of thinking you've got to bring to application development, to software, to be able to test out things very, very early in the market itself. So you don't spend a whole load of money to do this. So that's what I wanted to show with that video, but unfortunately not. So in terms of another story, a large enterprise that I started working with 8 years ago had decided to go agile. They said, look, we have a whole load of problems, we've been trying to build this system, it's been 18 months, it doesn't have any tests, it doesn't have, we've not been able to take it into production, we have large problems in terms of the business doesn't trust us anymore because we've not delivered anything for 18 months. I'd say, yeah, that makes sense actually, the business won't trust you. So real world problems or large enterprises. And they said, let's become agile. It'll all go away. And I said, whoa, wait. Yes, but there are a bunch of things you need to think about before you start thinking about going agile. So to me, when you're in an organization thinking about agile, these questions and making sure that you have these next 10 things I'm going to talk about is very, very important. So you have to have the ability and the authority to pick the right team. What does that mean? That means we all know getting good talent, good software development talent is difficult. You can get a lot of coders, but getting good software development talent is difficult. People that are of the mindset that will want to adopt to a new style of software development, and it is a new style. You got to do TDD, you got to pair, you got to do continuous integration, continuous delivery. People who've not been doing this have to go through a process of unlearning and learning. So you've got to unlearn a lot of those things that you've actually learned traditionally, and then before coming in here, and then you've got to be open to learning new ways of building software. You've got to be open to making errors. You've got to be open to catching those early. You've got to be able to write tests first. So a lot of different things come into this. Finding that quality of talent is difficult. So you have to make sure you have enough of that to be able to start building a core of the application, start building a core of your team, and then scaling it. So you have to be willing to learn and unlearn. A lot of places where this fails, so you built this team, you identified them, it exists, it's great. But then where it fails is, a lot of these people are still being judged on the old KPIs. You're still being judged on the old measures, the old way of working. Whereas here, as an ecosystem, within the company, outside the company, the industry overall, has to be able to build an ecosystem where early failure is accepted. You have to fail fast. You have to learn very quickly, you have to adapt. Your answer may not be the same as my answer in my organization. What's worked for you may not work the same way exactly for me. I have to take what you've learned, I have to apply it, be ready to take some initial failures, learn from it, innovate, implement the new stuff and move on. So that process is very, very important. But if you're measuring everybody very differently in the traditional ways, Nobody is going to try and do anything different because they're scared. They're scared of doing anything different because it will show up in their annual report or their performance report. So you've got to build an ecosystem that allows people to learn and change things. Most enterprises have legacy code. So how do you deal with that? That's really, really important. You've got to understand your code. So you've got to know where it fails. So run tools on it, right? Understand how you can test it, what is the level of testing available, how much automated tests are there, how many lines of code are actually covered by tests. How much does my build time take? Is the architecture right? Do I have one large monolithic build? All of these things are very important. And there are different tools that you can actually run on these things and understand how to break some of these things down so you can put measurable goals on them. Having a plan to deal with legacy code is critical. So you've got to analyze, to prioritize. The automated testing is, you have sessions on this later today, so I'm really happy. Testing is absolutely critical. It has to be done early, it has to be done as a part of the team, and it has to be done frequently. Which means you don't want to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. So if I have you do the same job repeatedly every day, you're going to get bored. So automate what you can repeat and move on to the next things. Use your head, not your hands all the time. Use your head, automate. If you automate the things that are repetitive, you can move on to doing things more innovative with it and do them early in the process. So it's very important that the team owns the testing, and it shouldn't be done in a testing center of excellence that is sitting 2 buildings away, 2 blocks away, 2 cities away, breaking your code after you've done building it. It's very important. Legacy code bases typically are large, single. They're not, what I've seen, they're not very service oriented, they're not broken down in ways and means where a lot of people can work on that code on a regular basis without stepping on each other's toes all the time. So you've got to have a plan to build, you've got to have a plan to break to a single monolithic build. Building once a week is not good enough. You've got to be building applications many, many times a day. You've got to be integrating that many, many times a day. So 10 people are writing code on it. It needs to be integrated on a continuous basis all the time with one large build that comes around you can run the build and it takes 3 hours to build it. Well, developers are not going to be interested in doing this. You're going to have to break it so that it takes less than 10 minutes to do the build. You got to put your automated tests at the back of it so you're sure of it. So this is the best risk mitigation strategy you will have on your code. So you have to get this going. The other thing is you got to get the business and IT together, right? So this is not easy. Once you've broken that trust with the traditional process, where you remember the business guys that I had lunch with that were great, now, you got to build trust with them so that they don't actually always want everything there. So you got to trade some things, right? You got to say, I'll give you complete visibility when I'm building the software, what I'm building, how I'm building it. In return, you don't ask for everything now. I will give you software every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So if you don't get something now, you will get it in 2 weeks. You will get it in 4 weeks. And you will get to prioritize when you get it, not me. So work with the business and get them to trade trust for visibility. So business will have to make the first step here. So all the BAs, you're going to have to go back and educate, work with your business, build that trust so that you can actually do this. This is a hard one typically for large organizations. So operational teams, compliance, auditing, architecture. I call architecture an operational team if it's not writing code. That's just me. But all these people need to be involved very early in the process as customers of the process. You got to ask for their requirements, what it is, and bring them into the process. Don't let them come at you at the end of the process. This is a huge risk. You've got to mitigate this very, very early. These are critical factors for a large organization. You can't ignore them. So just saying, I'm agile, and I don't take orders from compliance or, it doesn't work. Sorry, they're critical requirements for a business. You need to bring them in early into your system. So they typically behave, this is a yes Prime Minister quote, they typically behave like a loose confederation of warring tribes. These are tribes that keep fighting about. You can't do that. You have to be one team that you have to bring them into. So please don't be a loose confederation of warring tribes here. Very key, very, very, very key. This is where most organizations fail trying to scale agile. So when you've done the first bit, you've done a small project, you've done this and it's working, I've done a 6 people wave, I've delivered something in 3 weeks, I've started writing tests, my code is very well tested, it's continuously integrating, it's doing all these nice little things. And then you start taking it to a larger scale within the organization, it fails. Why? It doesn't have the necessary support from the top management. So for Agile to work at scale in an organization, the people on the ground that are building the application have to be bought in. That's a bit about the right team. The middle management has to be absolutely bought in. The project management, the operational teams, the head of compliance, all these guys have to be absolutely bought in. But also, extremely important, it has to have top level executive ownership. So the CXOs need to be bought into this. That's the only way an organization is going agile. So, and you need to be bold. So there will be cases where, hey, I'm building an iPad app. I need to buy a Mac to build this iPad app and write native iOS apps. Ooh. Our IT team, sorry, we can't buy Macs. It's not allowed. Okay, what do? I don't know. You can't buy Macs. So that doesn't work. You gotta take it. Top management has to be around to say, sorry guys, this is a project, it's going to go this way, we need to be bold, we need to make an exception, we need to buy these things. So you've got to be able to bring people in, executives have to be wanted to be able to make bold decisions and cut red tape. So there are many, many quacks in the system. So there are many people that pretend to know this, but don't. You've got to find out the ones that work with you well. You've got to find out ones that have actual experience of doing this stuff and work with you well. If you're starting on this journey, if you've already gone ahead, like some of the organizations talking today have, and they've done well, they've learned their lessons, they're doing well, that's fantastic. Use their knowledge. But if you're starting on this journey, use a guide. Bring somebody with you who's done this, bring a partner, an organization, whatever with you that has actually done this to help you through this. Otherwise, you'll be circling around making the same mistakes everybody else has. That's what I wanted to leave you with. Same people, same software, same failure. So do something different. Break the norm. Agile is not about software. It's about people. You get software to drive it. It's the goal, but it is about people. So when you're bringing in larger organizations, this is internal and external contracts. So you got to have people in your procurement team bought in, right? The Mac issue I talked about. If they're not bought in, they don't understand what you're trying to do with the organization, trying to be different, it's not going to work. So this is not just about IT team being sorted or the product management team being sorted. It's an organizational change. Remember the ecosystem we talked about, the HR, the people, the infrastructure, all of them have to be bought in. So that's the big change. You've got to write agile contracts and you've got to be able to implement them. If you have the wrong contracts, you have the wrong SLAs within the organizations, you will get wrong behaviors. You will not get the right ones. So that's the list of the top things that I would say you need to think about while taking an organization agile. I'll leave you with a cheat sheet as you go through it. So a lot of the sessions later on in the next 2 days are covering a bunch of these topics. So I would leave you with this cheat sheet to just look at it, make sure that there are a bunch of things that you're thinking about as you go into these sessions. Think about them, ask them, drill into them a bit more. So it is a journey. Sorry, I just want to take a look at the time. It is a journey. It's not a switch. So you can't just say, flick, I'm done, it's all working. You've got to actually go through this process. It's going to take some time. So where do I start with all of this? The first step, I've broken this down into 2 steps. The first step is easy or easier, right? Which is you have a kick-off and learn. So you start on your first project within a large organization, you start doing agile work, you say, great, I want to pick this up and build something relatively isolated where I can build it, show some success, I'll pick the right sort of people, I'll handpick him, her, him, and I know I'll build a team and it'll all work out. And there are a few things that you have to do. So to do something like this also, you got to have some leadership buy-in. Not a whole lot maybe, because you can sneak some of these things under the radar. Leadership buy-in is good. You will have to find the right people that will unlearn and learn. Put this in place in terms of find the vocal people, right? Find the people that are vocal about where the problems are. Find the people that give you, typically in my life, it's been the troublemakers. It's the people that ask me the hard questions, right? Bring them into this team and try and build a team around them, because they will be your best champions that you can build. Initially, find somebody that has done this before. Maybe another company, another organization, another partner, another vendor, supplier. Find somebody who's done this before in your world and try and bring them into the circle to learn from their mistakes that they have made, so you don't have to make the same ones. This is best done when for the first project, for the first 2 projects, for the first 3 projects, I will say pick things that are not extremely core to your business, that's going to touch everything in your business and shake it up. Don't do that. Please pick something that is somewhat isolated, you can build it, and typically these end up being more internet things, it ends up being more mobile things, it ends up being more front-end that you can actually showcase to the users and customers. So you can pick these things and build on top of that. So again, this is your test first, right? So you basically do this with a small project, test it out, build it up, learn from it, implement again, and improve it. This is where the problem happens. So you've done that, you finished it, you've done it once, you've done it twice, it is working well. But now when you start looking at scaling the change out, it becomes very, very difficult for you. So you have a very hard time trying to scale the change. Why does it fail mostly? This is where you really need strong leadership support. So this is where a few things need to be understood. The entire journey of scaling could be a long one. It is not a switch. Remember, I talked about it's not a switch. You can't just flick it on and you're agile. You got to work through some of these things. But you got to be ready to play a bigger role as a CXO, as a leader, because this is going to take a year or 2 years or 3 years for the entire organization, for a large team, for a large unit, business unit to change. It's going to touch your core systems. So you're going to have to pick a bigger challenge. You have to be more involved because you're going to have to manage that many more stakeholders as you do this. You have legacy code. In the earlier stage, pick something that's on the fringes, you're building something new, you can take it out very quickly. This case, when you're starting to talk about hitting this, you can't not hit your core system, which means you will have legacy to deal with it. So you will have to figure out how to get a review going, how to go through the entire process of areas of improvement, long-term wins, short-term wins, how do I fix test, how do I fix the build. You do a lot of these things through this process. So make sure you go through some of these things. Never go on a technical quest, right? So this is many cases where I've seen it fail is when people say, I'm going to do a pure technical refresh of the system. It has nothing to do with the customers. You'll never end. You'll keep going, keep spending the money, keep going, keep fixing it. Let the business requirements lead it. Understand what the business wants. Figure out within the umbrella of what the business wants, what are the things you can change, and let the business requirements lead the change. One, from an IT perspective, it's easier to get the money for that than to go in and say, I have to change the IT system. When you do it under an umbrella of the business requirements, it's easier to get money for that. Second, from a business perspective, you're delivering value and you're building confidence, you're getting them involved, you're building one team. So that's critical. So within stage 1, so stage 2, repeat as many times as necessary. So within stage 1 and stage 2 is the chasm that people have a lot of struggle with. So they do the pilot really well, they handpick the people, then they can't grow it within the organizations. They struggle with that bit. So that's where you really got to bring in the big guns, the CXOs, involve them, start pushing through the core system, start getting a broader involvement. You need to get procurement, you need to get all these guys involved in the process as you're doing this. So what happened to the story, right? I talked about a client that I knew for 8 years, that we built some relationship with, that wanted to go agile and said, we'll go agile now. And then we went into these 10 questions and drilled it and broke it down. Well, we did change the organization, so it is possible. It's not impossible to change large organizations and transform them, so we did. It looked very, very different. So the team looked very different. So each of these teams had its own wall that they're running. All the stories, all the features are coming. Each of these have contributed to the same code repository. So we have a single code repository that goes through installables, single click, touch into production, and you produce the outcomes right there and then. Each of these teams have BAs, QAs, and the developers on the team. So you're not breaking it down by different departments. And you have a standard dashboard that brings together all the builds, that brings together what's happening on the project. This one was a very large program. I'll talk about some of the numbers. This one was a very large program that we delivered. So it does look very different when you scale an agile team. It looks like a whole bunch of small agile teams coming together. That's the ideal way it should look like. So when we finished, in terms of the numbers, what did it look like? Where did we start, right? So what are the number of functional teams that we started with? So a big challenge for this customer that I worked with was I have multiple different companies that I'm servicing with the same product. So I'd have a product stream, I'd have about 14, 15 different streams running all the time, producing software. How do I do this? I can't scale it. So when we started, they wanted to increase the volume of business. So we started, they could not run more than 2 teams in parallel. So they could not run more than 15, 20 people effectively. Yes, you can always throw 40 people at the problem, but you won't get anything solved. We took them through a journey. Over the next 3 to 6 months, we got to 6 streams when we tried 2 or 3 different teams. Over about 2.5, 3 years, we were able to support 15 different streams working. So they could now service a whole load of teams, a whole load of streams across various different customers, the product stream, different requirements from different compliance teams. So they could support 15 different functional teams. Developers operating and working on the code. So we started off with a very small number of developers. So the idea was it's a large monolithic build, it's a large code base, that single code base is not service oriented, it's not broken down, so it doesn't do much. So they can't scale. So if they want to match these 15 different streams, they have to scale the number of developers. So started working from 20 to 60 in about 9, I think it took about 9 months to scale it to about 60 people working effectively, to getting up to a team of about 100 plus people writing code on this engagement. Again, all of this tested, all of this built, all the time. So how did that change then? So if you had 20 developers, we got to have a lot of builds, right? So this is my ultimate dashboard for looking at where the project is. So there was about 1 green build a day that was coming through. So when you started building it, we got it to about 12 green builds a day when we started increase to about 60 or 70 developers. To a point when we got to a stage where we were 100 plus people, there were 60 green builds a day in the team, which meant the 100 plus people writing code in different parts of the areas were starting to work on, they were building stuff, checking it in, the build was taking less than 10 minutes, and you could see the feedback right there, it was tested. What that meant to the business, they didn't care about 60 builds a day, right? What they cared about was, that meant I can get products from ideas very, very quickly, and I can get them into production, and they're tested and they're running. That's fantastic. So The thing that it tied into was the length of the release. So how long was the release taking? You remember the whole thing about I want it now because if I don't get it now, I'm going to get it 12, 18 months later. So it's all about, for the business, how quickly can I convert an idea into cash? How can I get it in? How can I get it running? How can I start making money out of that idea that is going out as software? So we started with a release length of 18 months. That's where before we got into the system, this was a large legacy, existing system, existing code that was running, and we started the transformation process when it looked like 18 months. Our first release took about 6 months to deliver because we went through a whole load of changes starting to make on the enterprise system. So we did a small pilot, like I talked about the phase 1, where for about 3 months we delivered something that was on the fringes, not core. Then it took about 6 months because we hit the core systems, we had to refactor, rewrite large parts of the code. Finally, we ended up with release cycles of 1 month. So what that meant to the business was, I have an idea today, I come and elaborate it with you, with your business analysts, with the techies, and within a month, I have it in production running. That's money for me. I can make a lot of things. And you know what? I'm okay if I don't get it today. I can get it a month later, right? Yeah, okay. So that changes the whole conversation from a business perspective. You stop getting into the, I want it now. You start looking at it differently. So, how can you all do this? Is having a safety net of tests. So, without the tests, I as a developer won't have enough courage to go change parts of the code because I don't know where it's going to break, what and how. So, this is really critical for me. So we started from a point of view where there's an old question that's there on the internet. It came through some developer cycles. I don't know if any of you know that. Why do you have brakes on a car? Does anybody know the answer to that question? Why do you have brakes on a car? Let's take a guess. You all drive, right? Many people drive, I'm guessing. So why do you have brakes on a car? Daniel? To stop the car, right? Yes, how many of us will say to stop the car? To stop the damage, okay? So basically to stop, slow down, stop, right? No. A different perspective to looking at this that was talked about by some of the developers, and I have their names somewhere, was brakes allow you to go faster. Without brakes, you will not move, right? How will you stop it? How will you slow down? So what the brakes do is they're a safety net. They're your surety that you can actually go faster and you can apply the brake and slow down when necessary. So testing is like that. It allows you to go faster. It should not be to stop you. It should not be to break you. It should to give you the surety that you can actually go faster. So it flips around the thinking. So flip around your thinking of how you see those tests, where you write them, how you write them, do them early, do them continuous. So when we looked at the automated testing coverage, it was 20%. So 20% of all the code was tested. We moved that up slowly but surely to get to a point where in about 2.5 years of working with the legacy code base, we changed it around to having 90% in automated tests. So if something broke, you would catch it. So you had the surety, you could go a lot faster, you could deploy things into production a lot more quickly with a lot more surety that it will work with that. So, it kind of all comes together in terms of just a summary of where we started from and where we kind of end up with. So, what does it do for you? Right? It goes back to the kind of things that it does for Agile. So what did it do for them? It allowed the business and IT to work together to solve a problem that was giving them as a business pain. It allowed them to flex up. Once they had the code base ready, it could take 100 plus people. They actually had a large demand from a bunch of their customers, and they scaled the team up to 200 plus people. Right? And this was effective because the code could be broken down, it was tested, it was being integrated 60 times a day, which went up to 200 plus people on the team. And you could do that very, very successfully, and then they brought it back down. They brought it back down to 30 people when they didn't need the flex. So the point was, earlier IT was a limitation in terms of how much business you could supply. They removed that constraint by going this way. The onboarding of new people became a lot easier with new tested code. It was a big challenge for them. It's a big challenge for a lot of us, is when we find new talent, how do we actually onboard them? So this was in the UK, and UK was going through a talent crunch about 6-8 years ago, where they were hard to find really good talented developers, and people were leaving for jobs quite a lot. So this helped them manage their attrition quite successfully as a business. So it gives them a bunch of different values that you don't think about typically. So it is possible. You can do it. And here's your cheat sheet. Right? So think about this as you're going through the next few days, about the next 2 days, about the different sessions. How are these things affecting you? Where are you going to do this? One thing, I don't know if there are any, this is absolutely key. Right? You have to cut red tape, which is the process of the environment, the process of policies within an organization, outside of organization, will kill an agile project. So you've got to make sure it's not about the process, it's about the people, it's about delivering software to the client. There are ways to meet all the requirements you have from security, compliance, auditing, etc. within the framework of agile. You don't have to go the traditional route all the time. So, final parting thought that I want to leave you with is, why is this important? So I saw this cycle in the US, I saw this cycle in the UK, I saw this cycle in India, I'm seeing it in Singapore and ASEAN right now. So we as a region in ASEAN have been a bit behind the rest of the world in agile adoption, which is bad from one point, but also great from another, right? Because we have so many horror stories that we can look at from how people have failed in all these different regions and learn from it. So if you look at the mobile revolution in Africa, they didn't spend millions of dollars laying out actual telecom cables around Africa, just like the US did or the UK did. They just went mobile. Right? They didn't spend actually laying out the cables, getting a phone to every house. They didn't have to spend that because they went mobile. So this region definitely has an advantage where you can learn from other people's mistakes and leapfrog a lot of the learning they have done to get far ahead. If you look at ASEAN as a region, you're looking at it from a perspective of the third, probably after India, China, it has the third largest middle class that's going to come up in the next 20 years, that's going to want services that want to be delivered locally. So you in Thailand are a huge part of it. So think about how you can build innovative software now, because this journey is going to take you about 3 to 5 years. And once you start getting ahead of the market, you can start building those locally. You've got to change your talent supply pool in Thailand. You've got to have government policies that support that change. You as people have to be willing to go through that change. So it's fantastic to see these many people here thinking about practical software development for the next 2 days, to go through learnings other people have and to implement them. So this is absolutely important. Other regions are going ahead, have gone ahead, but you have an opportunity. You can leapfrog them. You can do innovative things for your local market much better than they have been able to do in the past. So please bring these things together as you go through this. Look at the cheat sheet. Large organizations, small organizations, people will have to change. So bring that change, put it into this, bring it around in terms of the context of government policies, in the context of enterprise policies, in the context of HR, supply pool, creating that from universities, and be able to bring it as individuals to be able to learn, impart, teach more. So it's fantastic to be a part of this group here today. So I thank you very much for being a part of this. And thanks for the opportunity to come talk to you guys. Thank you.